You do not believe in cardio. Is that accurate? Because you haven't got me on cardio. So what's your stance on
What people traditionally call cardio, no. For the reasons that people want to do cardio, no, I don't agree.
cardio? So by that you mean the idea of just like running on a treadmill, things like that. Like, I mean, you still believe in like, if you have a sport and you want to learn the skills that you got to, learn the skill, in other words, how to run, how to, in fighting, how to punch or whatever. But you're saying in general for training, building muscle mass, losing fat, all that kind of stuff, you're against any form of sort of like cardio type of thing.
I wouldn't say I'm against it, but it's not necessary. So, again, people confuse cardio with skill transfer. So, people are under the impression that you see this in boxing a lot and in other martial arts, people jog. I've never seen anybody jogging in a boxing ring in my life. I don't know about you guys. Well, Jake Paul was jogging a little bit the other day, but you know, when people get better at jogging, they think that that is a general adaptation, a general improvement in cardio that transfers to other activities, but it does not. Another study performed in 1977 measured VO2 max between uphill skiers and maybe it was swimmers, I believe. And what they did was they found that when they practiced their particular sport, their VO2 max improved. But then when they put them on a treadmill, no improvement.
Interesting.
Their VO2 max was only improved in their specific skill.
That makes a lot of sense. Like, if I think about it, uh, you could be the best runner. I was a great runner as a kid, but that running cardio is not the same when you're in the ring, right? Like, if you want to be good at ring cardio, you need to be running gauntlets in the ring where you could just fight in the ring nonstop, because that's what is going to be realistic to the thing. But you can't just go run, be really good at running, and think that that really applies when you're throwing punches and moving and getting hit. It just changes the element.
Remember that skill is something that makes work capacity or work easier. So, in order to make the work of fighting easier, you need to improve the skill so it's less demanding on your body. In order to make running easier, you need to repeat the skill so it's less demanding on your body. Same goes for swimming, skiing, hiking, everything in the world. And again, remember, I was citing a study from the late 70s. We've known this for 50 years. But when we look at coaches, and this is true in fighting, the best coaches generally become the best coaches in people's eyes because of who they coach. So this guy coaches John Jones, this guy coaches Conor McGregor. Now they're the best coach. But they just ended up coaching somebody who was a freak and extremely good. It had nothing to do with their coaching method.
Yeah, like Mike Tyson's coach got lucky to train Mike Tyson, not the other way around.
Mm-hmm. Exactly it. So people look at their coaches and they attribute what their coaches are doing in terms of strength and conditioning to the individual success. While there's probably a lot of value in the skill component in teaching how to fight, but then when you look at the strength and conditioning stuff, it's completely useless. That's why you see people doing fucking Turkish get-ups, which I think is the dumbest, most useless, poor excuse for an exercise ever created.
What is that? What is the Turkish get up? Is that
Essentially, you hold a kettlebell, you like sit on the floor, and then you get up like without using your hands. And they're like, "Well, in fighting, you have to get up."
Do you lose your hands when you have to get up? Like, somebody take your hands away?
I don't know. But somewhere along the line, some coach was doing it who coached somebody good, and then everybody started doing it.
I wrestled at a high school out here in Arizona that is like known top tier for its wrestlers. We ain't never did one of them fucking get ups. Not a single one of those ever. You want to get up, then push the man off of you and get up. That's the best workout. Drill it.
But this is where some of this weird shit comes from. And it's even worse now with social media and Instagram because now there's an incentive to come up with new stuff for views. So now people come up with new crazy nonsense. At Florida State, they've been doing the same exact workout for 32 years. They've had some really, really good teams, some mediocre teams, some bad teams. You know, but it's not the training program. It's generally the recruitment, the skills of the players, how they play together. You know, these are all the important aspects of competition, and lies in the ability to do the activity. The strength and conditioning really should be looked at as like body insurance. You're making your body stronger, more durable, so that way you could play the sport for longer and be more resistant to injury. Sure, here's the thing. There's very likely an improvement in athletic performance with improved muscular strength, but it hasn't been measured ever. It's assumed. How would you measure it? Are we going to take the Florida State basketball team this year, only strength train them and not have them practice one day? You could measure it. And that's the other thing about functional training. The whole thing is assumed. It's wishful thinking. People think that these functional exercises make people better athletes. Not only is there literally not a single shred of evidence to support that, there is a plethora of evidence that refutes that. There's a study done by Stuart Bruslow and Dave Smith in 2016 that explored explosive training and plyometrics and all this stuff and enhanced athletic performance. They found there's no connection between the two, and more evidence that refutes it. And again, if you wanted to test it, how could you? You couldn't possibly test it, because if functional training was that effective at making you a better athlete, then we just wouldn't have practice. We would just have practice in the weight room, and nobody's doing that.
But Jay, I mean, aren't they stretching their muscles and their joints and all that kind of stuff? Isn't stretching part of what allows an athlete or somebody to do so much more than just getting in the gym and just getting at it?
It's funny because there's no evidence to support that stretching reduces injury either. That was embodied by science. There was a case study that looked at about 3,000 people and found no relationship between stretching and reduction of injury. None. And there were several studies that found that stretching prior to doing an activity which requires a lot of explosiveness or strength reduces the muscle's ability to produce force. You will actually be weaker if you stretch prior to doing a strength test or a jump test. There was a study done where they tested vertical jumps, and they had one group stretch before the test, the other group after. The group that stretched did not jump as high.
Is that because you're prepping your muscles for like a different exercise, like kind of that same thing, like skill transfer, but not exactly, where like you're getting it ready to do something easy, and then you go and do something hard, rather than just jumping?
It's because it dampens the response from something called the Golgi tendon organ in your tendons and the muscle spindles. So the Golgi tendon organ senses mechanical tension in the muscle and sends an involuntary signal to the nervous system to contract the muscle. And when you stretch, the loading of the muscle statically dampens that signal to the nervous system, which allows more range of motion. So if you put your arm out here, you feel it get tight, right? The Golgi tendon organ and the muscle spindles, which are inside your muscle fibers, sense this tension, sends an involuntary signal to my nervous system to contract the muscle so I don't destroy my joint. Because if it didn't, my arm would just bend completely the other way. Now, if I leave it here long enough, the signal to my nervous system lessens and my joint goes further. That's all stretching is. It's entirely neurological. And if you want to do a cool test, get completely shit-faced drunk and see how flexible you are. You'll be 10 times more flexible when you're shit-faced drunk, because alcohol dampens your nervous system.
Is that, I mean, not to get morbid, but is that why when there's drunk driving accidents, the driver often survives more than the other person?
Yes.
That's crazy. Stop stretching, people. All right.
Well, here's the thing. If you like stretching, stretch. All right. But is it necessary? So here's the thing. People don't have time to exercise because they think they have to do all this bullshit. They got to stretch for 20 minutes before. They got to stretch for 20 minutes afterwards. They got to do cardio. They got to do this. They got to do that. Nobody's got time for that. 90% of what they're doing is useless. If you like stretching, go stretch. If it feels good, go for it. There are activity-specific applications for stretching, and there's rehabilitative applications for stretching. Okay. But for general overall fitness, strength, physical capacity, it doesn't really do much of anything at all.